Welcome back to another episode of Sal and Pal Stay at Home and Watch Movies. I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hi, guys.
And today we're going to be reviewing Scoobs from 2020. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. Scooby and the gang face their most challenging mystery ever, a plot to unleash the ghost dog Cerberus upon the world. As they race to stop the dog apocalypse, the gang discovers Scooby has an epic destiny greater than anyone imagined. First pro on my list, I saw many characters from the Hanna-Barbera series cartoons, given that some of them were Easter eggs and some of them were cameos. For example, Hong Kong Phooey as an arcade game and Dr. Quest from Johnny Quest during the ending credits. This brought back a lot of memories when I was a kid, when I used to watch the cartoons back in the day on TV, and that really brought a smile to my face. But other characters that were integrated into the story kind of were a little awkwardly placed in there, so it kind of gave me a weird vibe, but at the same time, it really brought the nostalgia factor into this movie. Next, I guess I can say that the runtime, an hour and 30 minutes, is a pro, since it's somewhat short, kind of feels like a Scooby-Doo movie that would run on cable TV. I felt that they had so many homages in this movie, like names of places for old creators of the cartoons and tributes such as montage of the bad guys that the gang captured during their cases, which is a replica of the opening scenes of the original cartoon from 1969. This is not a pro, but just a side note that I wanted to point out. So that's something like a nostalgia factor they put in there without actually putting it out there like in front of you, but you noticed it. Now I'm going to move on to my cons really quickly. My first con, the story. Since they kept referring to the old cartoon villains or cases and such, why did they have to go all supernatural in the story format? Why couldn't they keep it like the classic missions where they had to blow a big case and at the end unmask the villain and he was behind it, you know, like, oh, he was a realtor who wanted to scare the people away from the amusement park because he wanted to buy the land for cheap or something, and blow the case big, and at the end make them come out in the big time news, and that way they can start their company. Next is a complaint more than a con, since when is Velma Hispanic? It's not like I'm against it or anything. I just mean that she said one word in Spanish and all of a sudden she's Hispanic, but she doesn't touch upon it. It's not that I'm not on board for her to be Hispanic. She does have that characteristics, and I looked it up and it's in her description for this movie that she is Hispanic, but at the same time you have to elaborate more, maybe say a few more words in Spanish here and there, elaborate, have last name or middle name in Spanish too, not just hint one word. But also what really bugged me about Velma was she never said jinkies, or she never lost her glasses and stumbled looking for them, which that is a classic. Velma is so classic as a Scooby snacks in a Scooby-Doo cartoon. So next, I get it that they were trying to reboot the Hanna-Barbera universe, and this is the beginning or similar to what Marvel did with Iron Man 1, but by reinventing some characters to appeal to the new generation and placing Easter eggs and tributes to retain the old generation is not really cutting it out for me. I really don't see this working. I mean, if they really paid attention to how Marvel did it, they did it in a really well formulated way, versus we're going to throw a few Easter eggs and make people feel nostalgia for the old characters. That way we can retain them. Unless future movies such as Johnny Quest has a deeper root into the old cartoon and just revamps a little bit so you can play onto the new generation with new technology, something familiar with the new generations, I can see that working. And since it's going to be parents taking the new generation to see it in theaters, or maybe, you know, buying it direct on video if theaters aren't open yet, this is why they should basically keep the root original to the original stories instead of revamping it for the new generations, because older generations are the ones who are going to basically buy this or present it to their kids and say, look, I grew up with this, you take a look at it. So bottom line, I was on board with the beginning origin story of how they met, that is Scooby and Shaggy, and even the idea of Dick Dastardly losing Muttley, and this is why he was after the artifacts. But once they said it was to open the gates of the underworld, I had a flashback of Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skulls, and I was not on board. And I said, this is not going to be good. I know the kids are going to like it because it's a cartoon, but adults who grew up with this cartoon won't. They're going to be either disappointed or they're not going to get the point. They will see the nostalgia factor in it, but the story doesn't hold true to fans. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to my friend Touly and see how he saw this movie and what grade he gave this movie.
As a kid, I did watch the cartoon. I didn't catch every single episode, but I did catch whatever I could when the cartoon was aired on TV. I guess let me start with my pros, which there aren't a lot of. I guess the biggest pro for me is the cast. Pretty strong cast, although because this is a voiceover type of work, that some of these voices you might not have recognized if you didn't know that they were actually in this film, from actors such as Will Forte to Mark Wahlberg to Ken Jeong. Tracy Morgan, I was able to notice that it was him when I heard his character's voice. But yeah, like a lot of these actors and actresses, I didn't even realize that they were in this film until I saw them in the credit scene. In a way, if you want to put a positive spin on it, then, you know, the cast is very strong. However, it does sort of paint it in the bad light in the sense too, in that if the movie isn't good, then having this amount of star power is, to me, trying to make up for it. I think I touched upon this idea many times on the podcast, where I say almost the same thing, where I love the actors and actresses in this film, and they're either, you know, very popular or they're just very good at what they do in order to capture the character, but the movie is written and told in such a bad way that in the end it doesn't even matter to me. So I feel like this film definitely falls into that category, because other than that, I can't really say much that I like about this film. If I were to look at it from the perspective of this movie was made for children, then at that point what I'm going to say next doesn't really matter, because I feel like you could get away with almost anything in terms of your pacing and how you tell the story. Like, to me, at that point, it doesn't even matter, because children just wants to be entertained, and as long as you sort of have those elements that keep them entertained, then, you know, good for the movie. But I do feel like this film does have certain aspects that it's trying to cater towards adults, and I kind of can relate that to what Sal said about him saying that how the movie wanted to reach out to those people who grew up watching the cartoon, you know, the nostalgia factor, and try to get them on board as well. And yes, there were certain characters in homage to the cartoon series, but, you know, just some of the lines and stuff, I feel like when I heard it, I felt like a kid would not have laughed at it, or maybe they would have not even considered it. I mean, even things, comments such as simple as, oh, bringing up Middle Earth, would a kid immediately connect that to Lord of the Rings? When I heard lines like that, I thought to myself, okay, they have to cater towards like an older generation here, or maybe like young adults, because they must have watched, you know, those sort of films as well. I felt conflicted in that I don't think that this film was totally made just for children, and because of that, I have to now evaluate the film as like a work of art. So when it comes to storytelling, pacing, and all that stuff, I don't feel like this movie checked a lot of those boxes. For me personally, I didn't buy into the friendship that was established at the beginning, because it happened too quickly and in a very comical way, in a sense. I know they were trying to present Shaggy as being this person who didn't have friends, and then Scooby being a stray dog, basically. How they kind of met, that was a good start, but then they went into this montage of stuff and then just doing stuff, and I felt like the passing of time went by too quickly for me to kind of get from how they met to where they're currently at, and it felt very rushed, and because of that, I just wasn't convinced. That's why. And it's the same when both Shaggy and Scooby met the other trio. Again, another set of montage from when they started doing these investigations, I know, when they were still kids, and then how it transitioned basically to now they're adults and they're doing this as a profession. Again, it just happened too quickly, and I just was a non-believer of that. I would have loved to see that transpired maybe through like the first arc, or even bringing it to the second arc somehow. Like that, I would have appreciated a whole lot more. But the fact that it happened too quickly, it threw off the pacing, and the things that I would have considered the serious tone of this film became very lackluster, because all I got for most of the film was joke after joke after joke, you know, some sort of culture reference after culture reference after culture reference. And when I see that sort of happen, it really undermines any serious tone that would occur at any point of the movie thereafter, because all I'm thinking is, oh, when's the next joke? When is the next humor that they're gonna try to throw at me? To me, it felt so nonstop trying to get these jokes out there, that when the movie sort of slowed down, where their friendship was put on the line, that I couldn't really, it just didn't have any foundation to it. There was no like essence behind it. It felt like something that the movie just needed to bring up, because that was the whole theme to this film, because it was trying to capture that theme that the film was trying so hard to push, and that was friendship. But at the same time, I kind of treat this concept around the entire group as well, though. I know this film should be focused more between Shaggy and Scooby, because I guess you could say they're the main characters, the heart, as it came to be said at the end of the film about these two individuals, that they were the heart of the team. However, I feel like Scooby and Shaggy wouldn't be who they are as well without the assistance of Velma, Fred, and Daphne. And
I feel like those characters didn't get enough spotlight, and their relationship was not as important as it should have been. And I'm going to exemplify this by bringing up the bowling alley scene, where after meeting up with Simon Cowell and him saying what he had to say, which Velma, Fred, and Daphne had no control over because, you know, it's Simon Cowell. He will say whatever he wants, and it's a true representative of the sort of personality that his character would actually have. And, you know, Scooby and Shaggy doesn't take too kindly to those words, and in a way, they blame Fred, Velma, and Daphne for this, even though they, in no way, shape, or form, were trying to, like, destroy the team. They just wanted to improve upon it, and they were just seeking advice. And then Shaggy and Scooby dismissing this sort of quote-unquote tension so quickly that it made me feel that Fred, Daphne, and Velma did not matter to them at all. But when it came to themselves, though, I mean, I hate to say, but they were selfish in that sense, that this is about us. It's not about the team as a whole. And like I said, I get it. The film is about Shaggy and Scooby, but it doesn't mean that they can't incorporate these other characters and make them feel important as well. And I feel, again, like a lot of things in this film is an aspect that it just fell short at. In the end, I feel like it's just one of those movies, you want to show it to kids, it's fine, but the movie to me was, I would dare say, bad, because there's just so many other films out there, animated films, that have this sense of humor that can cater towards kids and can cater towards adults, but still have this serious tone to it that after all the jokes and humor, when it comes down to like the moral of the story or like the very serious stuff, that I can buy into it because it's done such a great job at establishing these characters, you know, from the get-go. Unfortunately, although I do like the cartoon series, this film, I think, did a very poor job at just trying to be entertaining. So I'm gonna give this film a 4 out of 10.
Totally agree with you, especially when you said the star power. They were just there because they wanted to compensate over the lack of story. That is right on point, and you've said it in other movie reviews that we've had, and you pinpointed it. That's a common thing they do in movies, and this is a prime example of it. When the story lacks, that's when they basically put all their budget into the star power. Yes, you can show this to kids, they'll love it because it's a talking dog, but for adults, just stay away from it, especially if you're a Scooby-Doo fan, you grew up with this. Even if you're a Hanna-Barbera fan, just stay away from it. Yeah, there is cameos of certain things and certain cartoons in there, especially, you know, Dick Dastardly. We even see Captain Caveman, we see Johnny Quest, and there's a faint hope that this is the start of a universe, but they didn't start it right. Hopefully it gets rebooted and it starts off in a different way. Yeah, same grade as Touly, 4 out of 10. Stay away from this movie. So that does it for this review of Scoob. Please join us next time where we're going to review Antebellum.
Say your name, girl. Say your name with pride and conviction.
My name is Edith.
That's good, Eden. Real good.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our social media links below. And like always, keep watching movies.